concept like 3-2-1. 3-2-1 is a fundamental philosophy and strategy for backup. It's not fundamental for recovery.
No.
Prosiliency, to me, is that fundamental philosophy for recovery, but
as well as validating,
which is part of recovery, is making sure that when you take a backup, that it's going to work when you need it.
Right.
You're not going to get caught with your pants down.
It's time for the Prosiliency Podcast, aka DR in a Bar. Now, without further ado, here are your heart-stomping, pants-dropping, history-making, earthquaking, love-making, and booty-shaking hosts, Vince Vaughn and Eddie Perez.
21, right?
21, baby.
21.
Welcome to the Prosiliency Podcast, episode 21, the very first episode in 2018.
Yeah.
My name is Vince Vaughn.
And I'm Eddie Perez.
My hetero life mate, Eddie Perez. How you doing, man?
That's good. My wife always wonders what that really means or what that details.
Hetero life mate?
Yeah, because she thinks that she doesn't have to do certain things with me because we're life mates, but I told her that it's not that far.
Well, we're hetero life mates.
Again, I don't know. I mean, you're using big words. BC and DR. That's the farthest we can go.
All right, man. So yeah, I'm excited, and shit, we got some stuff to talk about this week. Meltdown and Spectre are basically causing havoc within every single data center in the world right now. And there's a lot of vendors who are furiously creating patches. We're going to talk about what those things are and what it means from a Brazilian perspective.
Right.
But first, where are we, Eddie?
Well, we are actually at... I have no idea.
He just walked in the door. So literally, this is a new restaurant
Yeah,
in
that's
Kansas
probably why,
City.
because it was ingredient.
It was ingredient, and now it's called Ainsworth.
Ainsworth, yeah.
And I have no idea what the significance of that name is. But it's called Ainsworth, and it's literally, we're on their second day of opening, maybe their first official day of opening, and we're here right now. We're going to taste, what are we tasting, Eddie?
Well, I'm actually going to taste their macaroni and cheese fries, actually. Mac and cheese fries is what they call it.
So we got to get a picture of this, because this looks pretty amazing. So basically,
It looks like a fish stick.
it does. It totally does.
Well, they look like fish sticks, and they give you some marinara sauce.
Marinara?
Marinara sauce.
Very good. So, and so you're gonna wait. So, okay, you look like you're ready to go, man.
I'm ready to go, man.
All right, so dig in. He's got this mac and cheese fry. He's dipping it in some marinara, and he's gonna taste it. So, what do you think?
I'm gonna do 2 bites real quick.
All right, do it. No problem.
One
man.
with the marinara.
And one without the marinara.
All right.
What do you think? I've never heard of a mac and cheese fry. Actually.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. The one thing I would like is if it actually was probably a little more cheesy, maybe add a little bit more cheese in it.
Okay, very good. So it's too much mac.
Too much mac, not enough cheese.
Not enough cheese.
Right. But as an appetizer, it's good. It doesn't have a lot of flavor as a mac. Sometimes you get some mac and cheese. Maybe if they had a little bit of onion or maybe some jalapeno in there.
Yeah.
It would have been really nice. But it's just traditional. Like if you did mac and cheese and you just deep fried it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Got it.
They just made it look like a French fry.
Very good. So I tell you what, it looks pretty tasty.
It looks pretty tasty.
So what's the Prosiliency rating for the mac and cheese fry?
I would say about a 7-1.
7-1. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a higher score than I thought you were going to give it.
Well, it depends. With the marinara, 7-1. Without marinara, 6-8.
Okay. All right. So you like
Fair.
a little bit better with the marinara.
Right. Yeah. It needs the marinara.
How's the marinara? You think it looks? I tell you, it looks a little runny.
Yeah, but I like that type of marinara.
Do you?
Honestly, yeah. For this type of dipping sauce, if you're wanting marinara for like a spaghetti or something like that, you want it to be a little thicker. But for when you're dipping these, a lot of times, if it's too thick, it doesn't really get onto the cheese onto the.
You are making all
fries.
sorts of sense right now. I'm shocked, actually.
I am too. Actually, I just came up with that.
That's pretty good.
Like I'm a connoisseur.
So on the beer side, there's a brewery in Lawrence, Kansas called Free State Brewery.
Right.
and it's probably the oldest brewery in this area. Like Lawrence, Kansas is about 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And as a result, I've made a ton of beers, and one of them they have is the Copperhead Pale Ale. It's a Copperhead Pale Ale. It's truly an IPA, and it's a beautiful color, and you'll notice that it's copper colored.
It is, and it has like a Copperhead actual snake on it.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of Free State Brewery beers.
And I have a dumb question for you.
Yeah.
And this would be something that'd be good for podcasts. They can. So a lot of these lower starting breweries, their labels a lot of times
What do you
seem
mean
to
a lower starting brewery?
like breweries that aren't like I would say smaller compared to like a Budweiser,
Sure.
Bud Light, things like that. It seems like the specialty beers' labels seems to mostly always be easy to pull off.
So
No
they-
matter where
they
you
skimp,
go,
they skimp on the
on the glue.
Yeah, so let's get a. Yeah, I like what you're saying. There.
Right, so I do know that my uncle, when he worked at Boulevard, and when my uncle still works there, is they had to kind of change it up a little bit and things like that to try to get him to stay on. It just seems
They
like
haven't
a lot
quite
of
mastered the process
Right.
of having a label stay on a bottle.
right, even though they've been around for a long time.
I get it.
But I understand it's like it works fine, but I do see it more often on these types of bottles than on a traditional.
I don't think they did spend a whole lot on the label. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Let's hope the beer is actually. I hope that's where they focus most of their attention. So let's try the Copperhead Pale Ale. It's okay. The Copperhead Pale Ale. It's almost like it was casked in iron. So there's like this metal tea like flavor, almost like
It's like Lawrence water.
it's there you go. It's almost like they have they you know what, we need to ferment this in nails. You know, it's like there's this metal flavor to this beer, and that's the worst part about the beer. The best part about it is that once you get the initial taste of it is actually pretty good. It's like they just have this lingering aftertaste of nails and screws.
That's what my wife
your
said.
beer. That's what your wife said?
After the initial.
After the initial taste? Dude, you are so wrong on every single level. I'm so glad I'm not married to you. I'm so glad you're my hetero life mate.
I like it.
As opposed to any other kind of life mate.
So yeah.
I'm going to give this Copperhead Pale Ale rating, starting off 2018 with, I'm going to say a 5.25.
5.25?
Yeah.
So that is one that you are not going to be drinking again.
If I had to drink it, I would probably do it, but I'm not going to order it.
It's like that beer that's at the bottom of the cooler after all the good beer's been gone.
That's
and you're still thirsty.
It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
You're like, I'm already 17 in.
It's
so
at the bottom. Absolutely.
Forget it. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, good.
My analogies are always on point.
Always. Every single time. So these attacks have been happening for the past few months, but we're really only starting to see the effects of them now.
Right.
So we're talking, of course, about Spectre and Meltdown. And do you understand the difference between the two?
No, why don't you educate me?
Sure. So, and I'm not the foremost expert on CPU hacks, which is basically what these are.
Right.
But based on my research, what I'll tell you is that Meltdown appears to be the more fixable of the two. Inside CPU design, there's this concept called speculative execution. And essentially what it is it has to do with performance of the CPU. So what it's going to do is it's going to take a more likely result and start to run with that as part of a process. And in CPU design, you have this concept called memory isolation or process isolation. Basically what that means is that when you have something being written to a particular process from the CPU, that you're not going to be able to see it across processes. That's inherent as part of the security in the CPU. Well, Meltdown allows you to basically see everything that's going on that's being written to that CPU. Not just by process, It's by basically everything that exists there.
Right.
And so what's happening is that you're able to see, for instance, in clear text, a password that's being written in real time as it's being entered and being sent into the CPU before it actually gets encrypted and sent off across the wire. So they're actually reading directly from what's going on in the CPU. Now, they're able to fix that with patches. So a lot of the vendors like Intel, right now it's affecting Intel-based CPUs, not AMD-based CPUs. So it doesn't seem to be at risk for them from an AMD perspective, just Intel.
It doesn't mean that it's not really there, but they might not have found it yet too, right?
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So that's so Meltdown is the ability to essentially read across isolation to see everything that's going on in the CPU. Spectre is a little bit different because what it's using branch prediction unit as well as speculative execution to train the CPU to act badly. So what happens in the CPU right now is that with speculative execution, if you get 100 results in an if clause that is always false, the CPU is going to start basically walking across so let's say you every day go up to a stranger and hand him a suitcase and you tell the stranger to walk across the street with that suitcase. And eventually what's going to happen is that stranger, after 100 days, is going to be reaching out for that suitcase and ready to walk across that road. And maybe even begin walking across that road while you're getting there. That's what happens in the CPU, except that you can train the CPU to expect that result, whether it's good or bad. As long as you continue to feed the CPU those types of requests, it's going to start to be trained to go across the street in this particular example. Now, that's bad, right? Because if you learn that, you can train the CPU to do all kinds of nefarious things. So it can be trained to not look at an attacked process, and if you train the CPU to ignore an attacked process, you can do all kinds of nefarious things.
So how does that really come in with Prosiliency when if all of your servers or all of your storage is using that?
Well, that's the problem, right? That's the problem because
that's where the traditional tape might come back into is one that's in there.
Absolutely. So we're going to get to that. You're way ahead of me as usual. You're way ahead of me. So, but to basically close the loop on that, if you're able to train the CPU to do bad things, as you mentioned, you can train it to accept a ransomware request. You can train it to ignore any type of good request and accept all the bad ones, and it takes a lot more. It's not just a patch that fixes that. That's inherent in the CPU design. The only thing that's going to fix that is a new CPU.
Right.
So at least that's where it appears where the fix has to reside. Because you've got to fix not only the CPU, a patched CPU, but probably the OS, probably the server, the storage array. All those things need to be patched. Now, and this got me to thinking on how this relates to Prosiliency. To me, we haven't necessarily defined these. What's the word? I think the word I'm looking for is levels. I think there's levels of Prosiliency, and I think we need to start thinking about what those levels should be. Like you've seen those pictures of like caveman to modern man.
Right.
You've got Neanderthal man. You've got Cro-Magnon man. You've got modern day man.
If you believe in that type of stuff, but I agree.
Wait, you don't believe in evolution? Are we really going to go here? So I think there are steps of development, steps of maturity, like a maturity model, like Maslow's hierarchy, where here, this is basic disaster recovery, and up here at the very top, you have Prosiliency. What do those different levels mean as you start walking up the level? And to me, this one would be a more mature level of Prosiliency to be able to combat something like this.
Yeah, I mean, if the technology is not designed or if there's not a fix to it, you're kind of at the mercy a lot of times of the manufacturer.
Yeah.
But you can protect yourself from, you may get hacked, but does that mean then you go into a closed network and maybe you put more security in place from that perspective where certain systems are just not accessible through the internet?
Yeah.
And so those are some of those steps that you have, and you just got to figure out the risk if you're willing to take those risks, and if you have a way in which they have access to the actual physical hardware to do something like that. I would say that there are levels. I think what you're maybe saying is there's different types of levels for each stack portion. So you have hardware stack, your app stack, whatever. That there are different ways and different ideas that you have to think about. Prosiliency is not a one size fits all. What it is it's at least you thinking about how are you going to protect the data and how are you going to retrieve the data, and you can validate that the data is what the data is supposed to be when you want it, right?
And a concept like 3-2-1. 3-2-1 is a fundamental philosophy and strategy for backup. It's not fundamental for recovery.
No.
Prosiliency, to me, is that fundamental philosophy for recovery, but
As well as validating.
which is part of recovery, is making sure that when you take a backup, that it's going to work when you need it.
Right.
You're not going to get caught with your pants down, you know. So, I want to continue to have discussions like this, and I'd like you to. I mean, you kind of went where I went, but if you could expound upon why you feel like an air gap backup like tape is going to be a good strategy against something like this.
Well, I think of it more of not as just a tape backup, but like you might put it as an offline backup as something that cannot be edited, removed. But a lot of that stuff, what we're seeing, has to do with more security. So reading the text unencrypted. The data sometimes might be what the data is. It's not wrong. It's just they have access to that. And for that particular scenario, having a segmented network that they can't actually access it to. Maybe it's just a read. It's a push only.
Well, the worm
can't do it.
Write once, read many.
Right. That would be one of those options. There is some different options for if they are changing or updating, or if something you do find out that you're being affected, having it where you know that your environment can run without the internet.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's pretty important. They don't think about it with the cloud that everything's trying to do and everything you're so reliant on. Sometimes for some applications, you may, I'm not saying you have to, but you may say these applications that we do have no access. They are totally isolated because of the sensitivity of the data. As an example, I have a customer that does, they do computer crimes, child pornography investigation. So they get all the pictures, they do that. That whole network is closed off to anybody, so that no hacker could go in. You know how like you've seen on TV where like the guys, we're going to go into the system and we're going to delete the data so they can't get they can make
like there's a race. There's always a race between the guy downloading the data to save it and the guy trying to delete the data while it's downloading.
Right. Well, with them, the internet, you can't access it at all unless you're physically in the building, physically at a terminal that actually has access to the data center that has no wire. The only thing hooked to the wire maybe is power.
Yeah.
That's about it. So with that, those are where they thought they understand that thing. They're not going to be affected by this bug.
Yeah.
Because no one can access any of that anyway. So
you're absolutely
worry about it.
The only way they'd be affected is if somebody in that network can do it.
Physically, they physically were there and all that stuff. So you have more of a physical, like actual, truly physical issue than you do actually a more logical, like connection type of thing. Or, and so that's where you have to figure out as a business: is it really worth it?
Yeah.
Is it truly worth it to the business? It does cost more, but you do know it does cost a little bit more pain. But how is that data? I might start saying at some point there may be a point where they start changing this up. They might not
321
have
is
all their
a
stuff on there,
fundamental
maybe just like 2 or
philosophy
3.
strategy for backup.
The
It's
one
not
location
fundamental
that
for recovery.
you go into the building,
Prosiliency, to
you
me,
sign up,
is
but
the
you can't do anything. It's all there, and you have to
philosophy
remotely
for
remove the
recovery,
data via,
but
as well as
it's
B
valid.
drives or something, right?
Yeah,
a
which is
secure
part
way of getting the data
recovery.
out.
Yeah, is making sure that when you take a
there
backup,
are some
that
people
it's
do that.
going to work.
It's just
You
a
need
matter
it.
of
You're not going to
everyone
get caught
has
with your
that ability
pants
to do
down.
it. So that's why they're working to fix these, and it might cost you money by upgrading servers and upgrading devices to get you off that. But do know, if it's not this, it's something else. So don't think that just because this was fixed that it's never going to happen again. It's just that the ones, like you said, they don't know what they don't know. That's where you need to realize what is your risk from an application and how do you want to protect it.
So 43210, one being one off-site, but also one offline. You've got to have an offline backup.
Yeah.
At least for the mission critical data, right? I mean, you want for the mission critical backups, as an example, you've got to have that offline. You don't want to be you don't want that in a position where it's going to be compromised.
Right.
That's good stuff. Now, what else you need to do is that you really need to make sure your systems are patched. I mean, so make sure that the CPU, and make sure that you go to your vendors, all of your vendors. Say, do you have a patch yet for Meltdown or Spectre? Especially Spectre, not Meltdown so much because that's really CPU based. While Spectre is CPU based as well. It touches other things, and so you're gonna need to go to your vendors to say, how are you helping me combat these things?
Right.
Have those conversations because it's going to be important to mitigate those risks.
Right.
So Eddie, I want to make sure what we do in this podcast is I want to inject a little more of us into this podcast, and as a result, I want us to talk about either something we liked or something we hate.
Okay.
So I've got something I liked. So and something I hate. I hated the new Star Wars movie. Hated it. Hated The Last Jedi. I thought it was. It may be long for the salad days of the Phantom Menace. I hated it so much. I thought it was it's like, what are they doing? They're just screwing up my franchise. But something I really liked is a movie I saw on Netflix called Man Down. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
Man Down. It's a story of a man who gets sent away to Afghanistan and away from his family, and him coming back from that and the ramifications of that. It stars Shia LaBeouf, who I think is, in general, a shit actor.
Then why did you get a tattoo of him on your arm?
It's very good.
That's what I like.
So because I just love him so much, I can't help it. It's like an abused spouse. No, but he did such a good job in this film. He played the man. He played the guy in the military who went to Afghanistan and came back. He just did an amazing job. It's a great story. It's an older movie. Shia LaBeouf in general in real life is batshit crazy, but he did such a great job in this film. It made me remember how celebrated he was as an actor. In spite of the fact I thought he sucked in almost everything I saw him in. In this movie, he was outstanding. So, Man Down on Netflix, I give it a high recommendation.
Nice. Well, what I don't like.
So you're gonna do something you don't like?
Yeah, something I don't like. Something I don't like is the ability of the movie industry to allow movies to be put into categories they don't belong in. As in, there's an awards ceremony going on where they put the movie Get Out as a comedy/musical category.
So the Golden Globes. That just happened.
I didn't want to give them even any type of name because they were being stupid. So it's the same thing when they did with Martian and they won the best comedy.
Martian won best comedy?
Yeah, so it's stupid.
That is stupid.
It's just dumb. It is very dumb. One of the things that I actually will do that I like is that, I do like a show on Netflix called Travelers, which is
Anna's watching. Anna the Press Girl's watching this.
they actually come to the future and they try to fix the future. And a robot is determining who gets to go back in the future, called the director. Mm-hmm. And the director was programmed, and it learned. It's a big AI that learns. And what its job is to do is it knows by little changes what future it might be creating, that it's always evolving.
Cool.
It's pretty cool. I like it. I finished season 1, season 2 pretty quickly, but I would give that a high rating as far as a Netflix, because at night I need something to do sometimes, and the Netflix binge watching, that's the one on Netflix.
Cool. I have to check that out. So The Travelers in Man Down, people should absolutely check out. That's cool. Well, another fine episode, my man.
Yeah.
Very good. I
Look,
will.
calm to 2018, which is good.
Yes, I like it. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Please, if you would, rate us on the app stores, wherever you listen to this. Please rate it or make a comment, and we will see you next time.
Yep, see ya.
This has been a Passage Digital presentation. Remember to back that shit up.
If you like this podcast, there are plenty of ways you can support it. First, you may friend us on LinkedIn. Our profile links are in the show notes, or you may share it on other forms of social media or discuss it on your own blog or podcast. Second, we view this as your show, so contact us and ask us for a question we can use, or simply let us know how you feel, good or bad, on how we can improve it. Third, rate us in the app stores and leave us reviews. If you hate us, feel free to 1-star that shit. But remember, 5 stars give you total consciousness on your deathbed, so you have that going for you, which is nice. And lastly, please visit us on the web at Prosiliency.com, Prosiliency.com.